Today's install is one that I'm pretty excited for. It's for the S15 this time, and it's this, an authentic Next Miracle crossbar. So this is a piece that I wanted for a long time, a piece that I always thought was really cool back in the day when they were more commonly seen than they are now. I basically just had to wait to own a car that they actually made something for, and now that I have the S15, I had the chance to get one, so I did. Now I've spent a little bit of time so far getting it out of the packaging. It was very well packaged, so give the guys who did it credit for that. But it's now unwrapped, it's polished up a little bit. I had some glue residue to remove from the tape, and I have all of the hardware out for it too. Now, I was expecting somewhere in the boxes to find some instructions for this, but there were no paper instructions. Instead, I'm assuming they're on this. They actually sent a CD. So, fortunately this is pretty straightforward. It's not too hard to figure out where all the hardware goes because it pretty much only fits in one place. The thread sizes for the car and the bar are quite different, so you can't really screw this one up, but still I found it pretty amusing that the CD-ROM was included. I guess that kind of shows the era of this thing. You'll also notice it says S14 on it. One thing I noticed, which was kind of peculiar, was when you go through the catalog for the Next bars, under S15 they only list the center bar, which would go right behind the front seats here. And I was considering it, but doing some checking, it would sit so far forward and then necessitate the seats sitting so far forward that I actually wouldn't even fit in the car. So it ruled out that one. But S15s, S14s are very similar cars, of course, more or less the same thing under the skin. And the S14 did have a few more options for it, including this, which is the rear bar. So this goes where the rear seats would be. And given that the mounting points it uses are the same, I can adapt it to the S15. So it will sit in the back where the seats were. The back seats are, of course, pretty much useless in one of these, so there's no issues taking them out. And this is pretty much what I'm planning to be the centerpiece of the interior, having this thing all polished up, sitting in the back on display. So today I am finally getting around to putting this in. I just brought Silvia home a couple days ago from storage, so I can get to work on it now. And with these out now and polished up, all of this out, and all of the appropriate trim and rear seats out of the Silvia, I can get these in. So the video itself will be pretty abbreviated for the install of this. I'm going to have some more detailed photos and comments on the blog itself regarding this whole thing, but I wanted to film it too because I am quite excited. This is a pretty cool piece. I'm very impressed with the quality of it, the construction of it. Some beautiful welds, nice little nameplate on it there. And also worth noting, just to put that down carefully, there are a couple of types of these. There's the Type 1 and Type 2. I went for the Type 1, so you have a continuous bar in one direction and then two more joining it welded in the middle. The Type 2 looks to have a bit more reinforcement in the middle, but the price was a little bit higher, and let's face it, this is not a track car. It's a little street toy, so I don't even need this, but any additional strength that the reinforced center section would have given, unnecessary. So I saved a little bit of money. I still get a Miracle bar regardless, and it should look pretty good in the back of that. Let's get to it. Now, while you guys just saw a quick cut between clips, we're actually jumping ahead a number of days here because we've been working to overcome a little unforeseen issue with this bar. So, as it would turn out, it seems that the seatbelt mounting points, the two upper points in a 15, are just that much closer, and that means that the X was not quite lining up. So the big issue was that these little threaded inserts couldn't thread in far enough, so the hole on these was further out than the hole on the brackets. So it wasn't lining up. We had to thread these in further, so with big thank you to Doug for lending his tools and machining experience, we took the pair of threaded inserts that had to be adjusted and extended the flats down a little bit, took the top off to shorten them, and then drilled new holes, which, as you'll see, brings the mounting points considerably further in. So I'm just about to test this again. With both of these now shortened and re-drilled, this should allow the top of the bar to fit in nicely now and alleviate the main issue we were seeing with the fitment of this in the 15 chassis. So that was a couple nights of work, doing one night and one another day, and now we have these, so hopefully this is what we needed to overcome at least this first little hurdle that we encountered. So, you know those projects that are supposed to only take a few hours and end up taking a few weeks? That is what this became. As you can see though, it's in the car. We got it done, and now I get to show you how we did it. So while the initial expectation was that this would more or less fall into place, given the similarities between S14 and S15 shells and what our measurements showed, it did end up being a little bit more involved than that, and in the end it took a pair of longer bolts, a few washers for now as a temporary measure, I'll show you that, a drill press, a lathe, and a Doug. So a little more work than anticipated, but the results are worth it if you ask me. So because it has been a little while now, I do think it's probably best that I just start fresh and kind of recap this whole thing, also because I don't exactly remember what I noted in the previous clips, if I'm being honest. So what this is an S14 rear miracle bar, because they don't make an S15 rear bar. The only S15 bar they actually make officially is the one that goes between the B pillars, the seatbelt mounts, and the lower points. I did consider that briefly, but with how far forward it would sit, I'd have to move my seat up to clear, and then I just wouldn't fit in the car. This is not a very big cabin to begin with, and the seat is already pretty much as far back as it can go, and that's where I have to have it, so that wasn't really an option. So this was what I decided to do instead. I went for the S14 rear bar because they do make more miracle bars and add-ons for the S14 chassis. With the help of a local S14 owner, we did a quick bit of measuring and comparing, and the points showed that they should be pretty similar, so we figured that this could be adapted to the 15 shell without too much effort, maybe just a bit of lengthening or shortening on some of the sides to suit any subtle differences. But it did end up being a little bit more than that. So I'll kick my flip-flops off and come in here. This will also highlight just how small this car is. This was my life for the last couple of weeks, crawling around in this thing for sometimes hours on end, getting all of this bolted in. So the first issue that we faced was that the seat belt points on the C-pillars were actually a little bit closer in a 15, it seems. So the two brackets that actually bolt in, as a result, then were closer to each other, and the X wouldn't fit. So what we did as the first step was actually file down, or I say file, machined down the backs of the brackets about 1/8 of an inch on each side to pull them out that little bit. We then had to also file the mounting points them a little bit to clear the X itself, so once they were pulled back it still wasn't quite enough to clear the X. We did that, that got the X to fit, but then the threaded inserts couldn't be threaded in quite far enough for the bolt holes in them to line up with the bolt holes in the mounts, so we had to machine the flats down a little further and then drill a new hole so that the threads effectively ran closer to the mounting points of those. That got the X mostly sorted. The next slight challenge I encountered was that once the X was in place, it then, with the machining and shell differences, sat a little bit higher up off the floor. So as a temporary solution, I will stress, I was using these while I was also figuring out the exact spacing I needed. There are some washers under the lower points, but now that I know exactly what height I needed to raise these up to get everything to line up, I can machine some proper spacers to replace these. So these are just the temporary pieces while I was getting all the measurements figured out. And then on that, because there is so much adjustment in these bars, in the length of all the points and the angle that these sit at, the mounting brackets, it does take quite a while to get the whole thing actually squared and centered and true. But now it is. I know all the measurements of these, so it'll be a fairly quick and easy job once some spacers are made up, just to undo this, replace those, and bolt it all back in. But that's now done. The horizontal bar, fortunately, was a direct fit pretty much. It went straight in. The only thing I encountered there was I couldn't quite fit in the lock nuts. So like the lower point here, if you can see in the dark footage, you do normally have some jam nuts here to tighten against the bar to secure everything, but those obviously take up some space, so there wasn't quite enough room to fit them. So in order to keep this from coming loose and rattling, there is some thread lock tape inside, and that combined with just the general tension it's under being tightened in this configuration, it's keeping it secure. It's not rattling so far. So we'll see how that goes, monitor it, and adjust as needed, maybe machine some nuts down to fit there instead. But that is the X in. The next step, once I do a little bit of cleaning up here, literally some cleaning, it's a little dusty and dirty, is to put the side panels back in, because I don't want to go completely gutted back here. I do want some, I want to look somewhat finished, so the side panels will go back in. The back I might leave open, I don't know. It does give me better access to my fire extinguisher. You can also see all the cleaning supplies and other junk I have in the back right now, but I might leave that section open. The floor, however, I do want to try and finish. So if you remember in Mustard, I did build a custom seat delete in the back just to finish it off, make it look complete and OEM in a way once I remove the rear seats from that car. So I might do the same here. I'll have a little bit more of a challenge given the hump in the middle for the drive shaft tunnel and all the other bits in here and the wheel wells and everything else. So I might, it'll be a little harder than the one for Mustard, that's for sure, but it's something I want to take on just to make this look a little finished and, I don't know, a little just tidier and neater presentation overall. Close it out, and I've also got to fit it around the legs, of course, so there's another small challenge, but that is what I want to look into next. And then once that is taken care of, that will be the X-bar, crossbar, pretty much taken care of. I'll carefully crawl out here now, but you can see what it looks like here. That's exactly what I was picturing all this time in my head while I was waiting for this to actually be finished up. So Type 1 32mm diameter crossbar and the matching 32mm upper parallel bar. I chose not to go for the butterflies just because I thought it would look a little bit cleaner and simpler without them, and then can't really run a lower parallel bar with the hump in the middle, so wasn't really a choice there. And as for anything else, because there are many other bars for S chassis that could probably be adapted to fit that run from various points to other points in the interior, I don't know yet, I'll see. I always pictured this as kind of just the big shiny focal point of the interior, having this cross behind the seats, and I am quite pleased with how it looks. It's, like I say, pretty much exactly as I envisioned, and after months of waiting to pull the trigger and then waiting for it to be made and shipped and now installed, I think it was pretty much worth it. Actually, no, what am I saying? I think it was worth it. So that is an S14 Miracle Crossbar and an S15. I am very happy with the results. I do feel a difference already. The car does seem stiffer in the few drives I've made with this installed so far, and it just looks cool. And also, hilariously, as I just noticed this evening, this is of course pure chance because that's just how Miracle bars sit, but it's almost exactly the same angle as the S13 third brake light, so it kind of looks like it belongs. But that's it. That's this install finally about 99% wrapped up. We'll call the interior panels and little spacers the last 1%, and then whatever I decide to do after that with the seat delete. But there it is, Miracle crossbar in an S15. I am very, very happy with how this looks. So be curious to see what you guys think of it, hear what you think. Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, have a good one.